Good morning, everyone. Welcome to my daily video blog. We are on day 19 of the blog today. That means it's my 63rd day of social distancing. You know, I am actually really glad to be with you today and every morning. It is funny how I really feel like I'm with you as I share with you each day from my kitchen. Yesterday's gospel scripture kind of got me thinking about this, as it told the story about Jesus trying to prepare the disciples for the separation that was coming. In his case, it was the crucifixion that was before him that was going to separate him from the disciples. But he reassured them that even death couldn't sever the relationship they shared. They could still abide in each other because that's the way God had designed the world, with countless ways of abiding. Yesterday, I got to return to my childhood congregation via the miracle of technology. And even in singing the hymns with all of us on mute, I was reminded that even as we're separated in various ways through physical distancing, through time, or through a mute button, or intermittent technical difficulties, we abide together. We abide in each other. We are, as people keep saying, in this together. The pandemic is helping me to understand all sorts of new ways that we can abide with each other. I'm glad that we're together in this little moment, that we get to abide with each other each morning. Today's daily prayer for peace country is South Sudan. This weekend I watched various expressions of the Community of Christ Daily Prayer for Peace, including Joey Williams's Peace Lesson as part of the Beyond the Walls Portsmouth Welcoming Community Joint Service. And I was reminded again that it's good to spend time each day learning of ways to create safe places of refuge in the world. Joey reminded us of victims of domestic violence who are sometimes forgotten. May the daily prayer for peace and the country of the day expand our vision and always remind us to grow in our care for others. Today, we remember South Sudan, and we remember that there's a world out there. Tiona has another book recommendation ready for us. The book today is called Awkward. That's Awkward, written and illustrated by Svetlana Chmakova, published in 2015 by Yen Press. Tiona says this is a graphic novel. The main character is the new girl at school, Penelope, and on the first day of school she's accidentally really mean to Jamie. That's, yes, accidentally really mean to Jamie, the other main character. She tripped and fell, and he tried to help her, but she didn't want to be noticed by the really mean kids, and he looked like he was probably one of the unpopular kids, so she pushed him away and ran away, rejecting his help. He's in the science club, and she's in the art club, which normally compete against each other and hate each other, but she ends up having a crush on him. There's some wonderful defending against bullying in this book. Tiona says that some graphic novels have an author and an illustrator, but this one has the same author and illustrator, which is just, in Tiona's words, like wow. Tiona says, I'm not very good at drawing, which is not true, by the way, but so Tiona says, I'm impressed. Okay, it's time for my daily check-in with someone from somewhere in the world that I serve in my work with Community of Christ. On the weekend, I had a chance to check in with dear old friends. Margie and Steve Lamour are from Chatham, Ontario, Canada. We've known each other for a long time, but I always come back in my mind to a weekend Laura and I got to spend with Margie and Steve and a bunch of others at the Blue Water Campground. It was a winter young adult retreat all those years ago. It's kind of a significant weekend because of the friendship we've had ever since, but also because, as Laura says about that weekend, I was pregnant. I just didn't know it yet. I was especially interested to check in with Margie because I know she's a school teacher and I was worried that this might be a particularly difficult time for her. My whole conversation with Margie and Steve reflected their wonderful empathy and caring for others. It actually took us a while to get into talking about how they were doing, because Margie wanted to update me on how some of the most vulnerable in Canada were managing. She pointed out that they were using the military in Quebec to help with long-term care facilities, and that there was new talk just that weekend about using supply teachers, substitute teachers in Ontario to help with seniors' residences, as many staff were off work for a variety of reasons. Margie is a kindergarten teacher. Can you imagine trying to reimagine teaching kindergarten in pandemic time using the internet? Margie described some stories from around the province of how difficult it is as teachers and students face all manner of challenges. Margie says that her kids get a math lesson in the morning and she reads them a story in the afternoon. They also try to check in with the kids and families to see how everyone is doing. Again, Margie mused about the challenges people are facing. She said there are teachers with little kids at home trying to teach. Some parents are still working. Some parents are at home. Some kids are with grandparents. There is uncertainty and stress on top of stress on top of stress. Margie expressed gratitude for the chance to connect online with other teachers. She said that's helping teachers keep sane. Connections between people, says Margie, are keeping people sane right now. Steve works in management at a local tomato canning plant. The food industry is very much impacted by the pandemic. As Steve says, it's a small plant in a small town. Everyone knows everyone. Only one person has been tested, and the test came back negative. But people who live in town and who work at the plant are still worried. We're worried, says Steve, that one person will test positive and half the staff won't show up the next day. Steve says that the plant is cleaner than it has ever been. They've instituted all sorts of practices, including limiting the number of people in the boardroom. Everyone's wearing masks. They've been watching what has happened at the meat plants, and they're wanting to avoid that, even when their operation really gets going later in the summer as the local crop of tomatoes comes in. One challenge is that they normally hire 100 workers from Jamaica at harvest time. This year, due to space limitations related to quarantining the workers when they arrive, they'll only be able to hire 60 people from Jamaica. That would normally mean hiring more people locally, but that's always a challenge because inevitably, Steve says, many of the locally hired folks don't make it much beyond the training period due to how hard the work is. We finished up our visit talking about what it's been like for their congregation having church via Zoom. Margie and Steve are part of one of the newer congregations in the Canada East Mission Center. The congregation is called SLIM, capital S, capital L, capital I, capital M. Sharing Love in Mission is what that stands for, Sharing Love in Mission Congregation. They had actually just signed up to have their own space at the United Way office for regular meetings. They'd had 2 gatherings, a first meeting and a potluck, and then they couldn't go anymore. But Margie and Steve both agree that they've been busier with SLIM since the pandemic. They've been meeting regularly for worship and sharing, but they've also been making cards and posters with thank yous and uplifting notes. They shared those first with a local hospital, filling the walls on the stairway that the staff had to use to get up to where they checked in for work. Then they prepared them for a seniors residence, where one of the fathers of one of their members is, and they made them for firefighters, and then they made them for emergency medical services workers. Steve held out some of Margie's beautiful coloring for me to see on the camera and joked that she colors within the lines. He also showed me some of her extensive marker collection. Her skills as a kindergarten teacher are crossing over to other areas very well as the congregation puts their talents to work in mission. It was really great hearing how they've been able to reach out beyond their congregation to find help and engagement in their project. Someone's next door neighbor is helping color posters. It's been a nice way for people who don't necessarily go to SLIM meetings but are connected to get more involved. Margie's even been able to share about this with her kindergarten families, and many from the class and parents are working on it now. Margie says this has become a great way to make connections around the worth of all persons. Well, it was great to check in with Margie and Steve, and especially to hear how this congregation with mission in their name has been living up to its name during unusual times. Okay, it's about time for our big daily announcement. Da 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 da. Now in this moment, now in this day, but the question is, what day is today? Wait for it. Today is Monday.
Yay, Monday! Monday is awesome!
Yay, Monday. Monday's awesome. Yes, Monday. Well, yes, Monday is awesome. So I do hope that all of you had a good weekend. I had a bit of a reality check yesterday when my Office app spit out my latest analytics report with a word of warning. It told me that I had taken 0 days away from work screens this last week. Yikes. We'll try to do better this week. Okay, well, I'm not going to keep you much longer than that. I'm hoping to be back again tomorrow with another What Day Is Today video blog. Again tomorrow, I'll remind you of the Daily Prayer for Peace Country of the Day. Tiona will have another book recommendation, and I'm looking forward to reporting on another check-in with another person to update you on how they're doing. I know we all live in different places and different contexts, socially, politically, etc. But here in Independence, Missouri, it's a bit of a big day today. A number of businesses and activities are opening up again after weeks of being closed. We're all trying to read up on and understand the recommended best practices for re-emerging and re-engaging in some things we haven't done in a while. My prayer is that we'll all have the patience and understanding required to move forward as safely as possible. I certainly pray that my actions will not put the most vulnerable in more danger. Last week in the World Church Leadership Council, we had some conversation about what best practices will be necessary when congregations eventually start to look at having face-to-face gatherings again. Just like we've been learning that we can abide in Christ and with each other in new ways throughout this time of social distancing, we'll all have more new things to learn as we contemplate holding gatherings in the future. But I know we'll be blessed because diversity in the ways of being together seems to be woven into the very intention of the universe. I will put a note in the description for today's blog to the Community of Christ Enduring Principles, because I've been thinking that as we engage with this sea of advice on the nuts and bolts of reopening, and as people of faith, well, I find myself going back to our enduring principles. I hope that all we'll do will be grounded in those fundamental values. I find myself meditating on the worth of all persons, the blessings of community, grace and generosity, with a strong focus on responsible choices and the other principles too. My hope is that maybe these can help all of us as lenses through which we consider what local rules may allow for or may ask us to do. So check out the link to the Enduring Principles on the Community of Christ website and spend some time with those this week if you like. Okay, so I'm signing off for now from my home in Independence, Missouri. Please, until tomorrow, remember to breathe.